The scent of lavender and sage clung to the still air of our pack house, a fragrant mask for the tension that hummed through every stone and timber. Outside my high window, the ancient forest seemed to hold its breath, leaves rustling in a wind I could not feel, as if the very trees whispered about the turning of fate. The ceremony of Concord occurred once each decade, when the moon swelled to its most potent phase and the veil between destinies grew thin enough for true pairs to recognize one another. For unmated females of age, attendance was not merely expected, it was law. Yet I remained sequestered in the attic room, where dust motes pirouetted in slants of fading afternoon light. My fingers traced the familiar, weathered grooves of the windowsill. Below, I watched the other daughters of our pack being adorned in silks, their laughter drifting upward like shards of a celebration I was forbidden to join. You understand why this is necessary, Alara. My stepmother Vivian's voice had been cloyingly sweet that morning, her grip firm on my shoulder as she guided me here. With your particular nature, it would be cruel to subject you to the gathering. False hope is a bitter poison. My particular nature was a simple, stark truth in a world of wolves. I was an anomaly. In a society where physical prowess was paramount, I was the one who had never completed the shift. My attempts were partial, halted things, considered a mark of shame, a sign of diluted lineage and failing magic. My father had been my shield while he lived. In the 3 winters since his passing, Vivian had been meticulous in reminding everyone, myself most of all, of my designated place. I twisted a strand of my pale blonde hair, so unlike the rich, dark tones that defined our pack, another visible signature of my otherness, another reason for my concealment. On my small bedside table rested my sole inheritance, my mother's silver pendant, a crescent moon cradling a single star. "Remember, Starlight," she had whispered, her voice frail with illness when I was just 6. "Even the faintest glimmer can pierce the deepest dark." I had worn it every day since, drawing a quiet fortitude from its gentle weight against my skin, a tether to the woman I barely remembered. The clamor from below intensified as twilight bled across the sky. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass, feeling the distant, rhythmic thrum of ceremonial drums begin to pulse through the foundations. A summons, not for me, never for me, a soft, urgent knock startled me. Alara, it was Mira, my only ally. Her voice was a hushed thread of sound. "Are you decent? I don't have long." I hurried to unbolt the door, casting a nervous glance down the empty stairwell. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered, pulling her inside. "They'll call for the procession soon." Mira's dark eyes gleamed with resolve as she thrust a bundled cloth into my arms. "Which is precisely why I brought you this. I refuse to let you miss another ceremony because of that woman." The bundle unfurled into a gown of simple, elegant design, the color of a clear winter sky. "Mira, I cannot." "You can," she insisted, her fingers already working at the fastenings of my worn, gray dress. "Your father was a respected elder. Your right to be there is as valid as any. You know it is not that straightforward." My hand flew to my pendant. The memory of my last attempt to join a pack gathering at 15 was a fresh bruise. That was years ago. We are adults now. Mira's tone softened. "Besides, this is no ordinary gathering. The Alpha King himself is attending." My heart stumbled. "What? King Nathaniel never attends regional ceremonies." "Something has shifted," she said, her voice dropping. "Whispers say he is finally seeking his consort." A consort. The notion was almost laughable. Alphas allied with other alphas or strong betas, not with those who could not fully answer the call of the wolf. Yet, as Mira helped me into the soft, unfamiliar fabric, a strange sensation stirred in my chest. Not hope, I had long since disciplined that feeling into submission, but a sharp, piercing curiosity. The Alpha King was a figure of legend. His pack, the strongest across the 5 territories. Tales of his strategic prowess and unwavering dedication to his people had even reached my secluded existence. There, Mira said, stepping back to survey her work, she had woven sections of my hair into a simple braid, securing it with tiny crystal clips that caught the dying light. Now you look as you should, an elder's daughter. I touched the sleeve, the material finer than anything I'd known in years. How will I ever pass Vivian? A sly smile touched Mira's lips. She is consumed with ensuring her own daughters outshine all others. The side entrance by the kitchens will be unattended. Wait for the third horn, then take the servant stair and follow the stream path to the ceremonial grounds. The first, distant blast of a horn made us both start. I must go, Mira said, squeezing my hands. Promise me you will come. After she slipped away, I stood motionless, the dress whispering around my ankles. The second horn sounded, its deep vibration traveling through the floorboards. My fingers found the pendant, tracing its familiar contours, even the faintest glimmer. When the third call echoed, I was already descending the narrow, hidden staircase, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The forest enveloped me like a silent confidant, branches shifting to allow paths of moonlight to guide my way. I followed the stream as instructed, its gentle murmur a counterpoint to the growing resonance of drums and voices ahead. The scent of ceremonial fires and incense grew potent, mingling with the raw, earthy essence of gathered wolves. I paused at the clearing's edge. Hundreds of wolves from neighboring packs filled the sacred space, their collective energy a palpable force. At the center blazed a towering bonfire, flames straining toward the full moon, and there, upon a raised dais, sat the council of elders and him. Even at this distance, he was unmistakable. Nathaniel Blackthorn commanded space without effort, his presence a gravitational force. His shoulders were broad beneath a cloak of deepest night, his features carved with an authority born of both lineage and hard-won battle. Yet it was his profound stillness that struck me most. Amidst the shifting crowd, he remained an anchor, as if the chaos of the world had long learned to flow around his unyielding core. I should not be here, this was folly. I took a step back, ready to retreat into the welcoming shadows, when a cluster of laughing females jostled past me into the clearing. The motion propelled me forward out of concealment and into the fringe of firelight. For a breath, I went unnoticed. I kept my gaze lowered, moving along the periphery, hoping to spot Mira. The ceremony had commenced. Young females from each pack were being presented to the Alpha King and his council. Most received a brief, appraising glance before a respectful nod dismissed them. This was typical. True pairs were rare, not even a king could fabricate a bond not written in the stars. I had nearly reached the shelter of a tree cluster when a sudden, profound silence crashed over the gathering. The drums ceased mid-beat. The quiet was so absolute I could hear the hungry crackle of the great fire. Continue the presentations. The voice that broke the stillness was deep, resonant, and carried the weight of unquestioned command. The king had spoken, yet the silence persisted. I risked a glance over my shoulder and froze. Every face was turned in my direction, every eye was upon me, and at the epicenter of that frozen tableau, the Alpha King had risen to his feet, his gaze a tangible force piercing the distance between us. "You," he stated, the single word effortlessly spanning the space. "Come forward." My limbs refused instruction. This was not happening. A susurrus of whispers rippled through the crowd. "Who is she? Edward's daughter, the half-shift? Impossible." Then a voice, sharp with fury and fear. "Alara." "What are you doing here?" Vivian pushed through the throng, her expression a mask of rage. "Your Majesty, forgive this interruption. This girl is unwell and has no place here. I will remove her at once." I felt her hand clamp around my arm, nails biting into my skin. A familiar, scorching shame flooded through me. I had been a fool to come. "Release her." The command cut through the night air like steel. The Alpha King had descended from the dais and was moving toward us, the crowd parting before him as if by unseen command. Vivian's grip tightened for a second, then fell away. He halted mere feet from me, and I found I could not lift my eyes to meet his. The power radiating from him was immense, a pressure against my senses. When his fingers touched my chin, gently tilting my face upward, the contact was electric, a shocking, exhilarating jolt. His eyes were amber in the firelight, ringed with gold. They widened slightly as they searched my features, something akin to recognition flashing in their depths. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice softer now, but no less compelling. "Alara, your majesty." My voice was a ghost of sound. A smile touched his lips, brief, intense, and utterly possessive. "Alara," he repeated, as if tasting the syllables. Then he turned to address the stunned assembly, his hand remaining at my chin. "The ceremony is concluded. I have found what I sought." The collective gasp was a rush of wind. Dizziness swept over me, the world tilting on its axis. This could not be real. He could not mean, "Your Majesty." Vivian's voice was desperate now. "There must be some error. Alara is mine." He finished the thought, the word a low growl that vibrated with such finality it stole the breath from her protest. "By sacred right and before these witnesses, I claim this female as my destined counterpart." As the full meaning of his declaration anchored itself in my mind, the ground seemed to fall away. The last sight I registered before darkness surged at the edges of my vision was the fierce, unwavering certainty in the Alpha King's eyes as he reached out to steady me. I awoke to the sensation of silk and the scent of sandalwood. For a disoriented moment I lay perfectly still, convinced I was entangled in an elaborate dream. The ceiling above was vaulted, intricate wooden beams arching like the ribs of a slumbering giant. This was not my attic room with its familiar stains and sighs. Memory returned in a relentless tide. The ceremony, the whispers, the king's pronouncement. I sat up abruptly, the fine sheets clutched to my chest. "You are awake." The voice came from a corner where shadows gathered despite the morning light filtering through tall windows. He stepped forward and my breath caught. By firelight he had been formidable. In the clear light of day, he was devastating. Tall and broad-shouldered, he moved with the restrained potency of an apex predator. His face was a study in strength, a strong jaw, high cheekbones, and those eyes, amber and gold, observing me with an intensity that warmed my skin. "Where am I?" I managed, though I suspected. "My private quarters within your pack's lodge," he said, moving closer. I fought the instinct to retreat. "I thought you might appreciate tranquility after last night's events." Last night's spectacle, he meant. I had fainted before hundreds. "There has been a mistake," I said, the words tumbling out. "You cannot truly want me as your counterpart. I cannot fully shift. I am considered flawed among my own people. You are the Alpha King. You require someone strong, someone who will command respect." Something dangerous flickered in his expression. "Are you refusing me, little wolf?" The edge in his voice should have terrified me, but a strange calm settled in its place. What more could truly be taken from me? I am attempting to prevent a political miscalculation. An Alpha King with a half-shift counterpart would become a subject of mockery. Your adversaries would perceive weakness. He closed the distance between us with a speed that left me blinking. One knee rested on the bed, his face inches from mine. A large, warm hand cupped my cheek, his thumb brushing my lower lip in a gesture both tender and asserting. "Let me be unequivocal," he said, my name a soft caress. "For 15 years I have built an empire spanning 5 territories. I have quelled rebellions, united warring packs, and forged peace from bloodshed. No one would dare ridicule my choice, regardless of her shifting prowess." His proximity was overwhelming. His scent, pine, smoke, something uniquely his, filled every breath. His hand slid to cradle the back of my head. "Furthermore," he continued, his voice a low rumble I felt in my bones, "you sense the truth as well as you felt it last night." The connection that has already begun to form between us. I wished to deny it, but the falsehood would not form. I had felt something, a profound recognition, a pull that defied all logic and self-preservation. "Why me?" I whispered, "of all who were there." His thumb traced the line of my jaw. "The moon selects our pairs, little wolf, not our rational minds. Something in you calls to the most fundamental part of me." His gaze darkened. "Now tell me truly, do you feel nothing when I touch you thus?" His fingers trailed down my neck to the hollow of my throat where my mother's pendant rested. The simple contact sent sparks cascading through me, my body responding with a will of its own. I could not finish, overwhelmed. A satisfied curve touched his lips. As I thought, he withdrew slightly, allowing me to breathe. "You will have time to adjust, Alara. I am not a tyrant who forces his will upon an unwilling heart, regardless of the tales you may have heard." A confusing mix of relief and unexpected disappointment washed through me. "So, you are not actually claiming me?" "Oh, I am claiming you," he said, his tone leaving no ambiguity. "But the formal bonding can await your readiness. Meanwhile, you will return with me to the capital and assume your place as my chosen." The capital, the heart of his power, a place known to me only through stories. "My stepmother, she has no authority over you now," he said, his expression hardening. "Though I confess her reaction last night intrigues me. Why would she conceal you from the ceremony?" The old shame rose. "Because I am an embarrassment. My father was a respected elder. A daughter who cannot shift reflects poorly on his choice on my mother." "Your mother." Something shifted in his eyes. "Tell me of her." My hand went to the pendant. "She died when I was young. She was different like me. My father loved her despite it. After he was gone, I had no defender." Nathaniel's gaze followed my movement. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the necklace. I nodded hesitantly. His fingers were surprisingly gentle as he lifted the silver crescent and star, examining it closely. "This symbol," he said quietly, "do you know its significance?" My mother said it represented guidance in darkness. That even the smallest light can pierce the deepest dark. A shadow crossed his features. "It signifies far more than that." He released the pendant, letting it fall back against my skin. "Far more, but that is a discussion for another time. For now, you must prepare to depart. We leave for the capital at midday." "So soon? I have nothing ready, no possessions." "All you require will be provided," he stated, "unless there is something specific you wish to bring." I thought of my meager attic belongings, threadbare dresses, my father's old books, forest-gathered trinkets. Nothing of value save for one thing. I touched the pendant. "And may I bid farewell to my friend Mira?" He nodded. "Of course, I will send someone to assist you." He moved to the door but paused, his hand on the latch. "One more thing, Alara, you speak of your inability to shift as a flaw." He looked back, his gaze piercing. "I believe you will discover it is not a flaw at all, but an indication of something rare and precious, something your stepmother may have had cause to fear." Before I could question him, he was gone, leaving me adrift in a sea of newfound questions. True to his word, attendants arrived shortly, not pack members I knew, but his own staff, who treated me with a deferential precision that felt alien. They brought robes of exquisite fabric, assisted with a bath in scented water, and arranged my pale hair with meticulous care. Throughout, I felt detached, an observer in a play about another's life. Mira found me as I finished dressing. She burst into the room, her eyes wide with a mixture of thrill and concern. "Alara," she embraced me tightly, "the entire pack is in turmoil, is it true? Has the Alpha King truly chosen you?" "It appears so," I said, the reality still elusive. "We depart for the capital today." "The capital?" She pulled back, studying my face. "This is unimaginable. How do you feel?" How did I feel? A maelstrom of terror, confusion, and a strange, illicit exhilaration. "I cannot say," I admitted. "It is all too swift. Yesterday I was locked away. Today I am to be the future consort of 5 territories." Mira's expression grew serious. Vivian is incensed. She claims you used forbidden magic to deceive the king. I laughed, a bitter sound. Naturally, no one believes her, Mira assured me. They witnessed his regard for you. Everyone recognizes the beginnings of a true bond. A knock interrupted us. A tall woman with short, dark hair and a warrior's bearing entered. Her demeanor was efficient but not unkind. My lady, the king requests your presence in the main hall. Your Pack Alpha wishes to formally acknowledge your new standing before your departure. Anxiety coiled in my stomach. The Pack Alpha, Vivian's brother, who had permitted my treatment since my father's death. Mira squeezed my hand. I will be there, she promised. This is your moment, Alara. Remember yourself, but who was I? The question echoed as I followed the warrior through familiar corridors that now seemed foreign. People halted and stared as I passed, their expressions a spectrum of awe, bewilderment, and hostility. I held my chin level, though my heart thundered. The main hall was dense with pack members, a wall of heat and tension. At its head stood Nathaniel, imposing in formal black and silver, a subtle circlet of wrought metal upon his brow. Beside him stood Alpha Marcus, my pack's leader, his discomfort palpable. To the side stood Vivian and her daughters, their faces tight with suppressed fury. As I walked forward, the crowd hushed, whispers trailing me. I fixed my eyes on Nathaniel, drawing a fragile strength from the approval I saw there. Alpha Marcus cleared his throat. Members of the Northern Pine Pack, we gather to acknowledge a historic moment. Our pack has been honored by the Alpha King's selection of a counterpart from among our own. His words were correct, his tone strained. This was not the alliance he had envisioned. Alara, daughter of Elder Edward, he continued, step forward and be recognized. I moved before him, back straight. By the ancient laws that bind all packs, you are released from your obligations here and acknowledged as the chosen counterpart of Alpha King Nathaniel Blackthorn. May the moon bless your union and fortify the bonds between our peoples. It was a sterile recitation, devoid of warmth but legally sufficient. I bowed my head in acknowledgement, then turned to face the pack as custom demanded. It was then that Vivian stepped forward, her voice slicing through the formality. A moment, brother, before we send our charge to the capital, should we not ensure the Alpha King is fully aware of her condition? A low growl emanated from Nathaniel, but Vivian pressed on, her eyes glinting. We would not wish His Majesty to discover too late that his chosen can barely summon claws, let alone achieve a full shift. What manner of consort would that make? What lineage could she possibly secure? Enough, Nathaniel's voice was a whip crack. He moved to stand beside me, his hand coming to rest possessively at the base of my spine. I am fully cognizant of Alara's unique nature, and I deem it more valuable than the commonplace strength many here pride themselves upon. The tension in the room thickened as he held Vivian's gaze, his power expanding until the air grew heavy. In fact, he continued, deceptively soft, I find myself curious. Why were you so determined to conceal her? What is it about her that frightens you so, Vivian? Vivian paled. I sought only to shield her and our pack's reputation. Is that so? Nathaniel's smile was cold. How curious that your protection so closely resembled imprisonment. He turned to address the assembly, his arm now firmly around my waist. Hear this clearly. Alara is under my protection now. Any disrespect shown to her will be considered a direct offense against your king, and I trust none of you wish to give such offense. The threat lingered, unambiguous. I should have felt bolstered, but a cold understanding settled within me. This was more than a simple pairing. Undercurrents moved beneath the surface, secrets yet unspoken. As we exited, I caught Vivian's gaze a final time. Behind the rage and humiliation, I saw something unexpected, genuine fear. The journey to the capital spanned 3 days, a passage into another world. I had never traveled beyond our territory's borders, and the shifting landscapes outside the caravan window captivated me, dense forests yielding to rolling hills, then expansive plains where grass flowed like water under the wind's hand. Nathaniel remained an enigma. At times he would sit across from me for hours, inquiring about my life, my thoughts, my small joys and sorrows. At others he withdrew into a silent, focused contemplation. At night he honored my space, arranging separate quarters despite the knowing looks of his guards. On the final day, as the road climbed toward the mountain pass leading to the capital, he joined me at the window. "Share your thoughts," he said, his voice low. I hesitated, then chose honesty. "I do not comprehend why I am here, why you selected me." His fingers brushed mine on the sill, the casual contact sparking across my skin. "Is it so difficult to accept that the moon selected you for me?" "Yes," I admitted. "My entire life has been a lesson in inadequacy, to be told I am worthy of this." I gestured vaguely at the opulence around us. "It feels like an error awaiting correction." Something hardened in his expression. "Your stepmother has much to answer for. It was not only her, it is the entire system. Strength is the only currency." I was proof that bloodlines can fail. His hand covered mine completely, warm and secure. "There are many forms of strength, Alara. The fortitude to endure scorn without becoming cruel is rare and precious." His thumb traced circles on my wrist. "Besides, your lineage is not weak. It is merely distinct." There it was again, that hint of knowledge withheld. Before I could press, he nodded toward the window. "Look, your first sight of Blackthorn City." I caught my breath as we crested the pass. The capital unfurled across the valley basin like a jewel nestled in the mountain's embrace. Stone structures climbed gentle slopes, red-tiled roofs gleaming. At the heart, dominating all, stood a formidable edifice of dark stone and glass, the royal citadel. "It is beautiful," I whispered. "It is home," he replied. "And now it is yours as well." As we descended, people gathered along the roadside, their numbers swelling near the city gates. They waved and called out, some bearing flowers. Nathaniel acknowledged them with a raised hand, every inch the sovereign. "They have heard of you," he explained. "Word travels swiftly. What have they heard?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious, his lips quirked. "That their king has at last found his counterpart, that she is fair with hair like moonlight and carries herself with quiet grace despite past hardship." Heat touched my cheeks. "You have been speaking of me." "I have been speaking truth," he corrected. "Though I omitted the part where you fainted in my arms the moment I claimed you, I presumed you would appreciate the discretion." For the first time since this whirlwind began, I laughed, a genuine, startled sound that seemed to please him greatly. The city itself was overwhelming, the cacophony, the scents, the press of bodies seeking a glimpse of their king and his mysterious choice. I instinctively shrank back, but Nathaniel's arm encircled me, solid and reassuring. "Breathe," he murmured near my ear. "They are merely curious. In time they will come to." He stopped. "To what?" I asked. His eyes met mine, something fierce and unguarded in their depths. "To cherish you as I am beginning to." The words hung between us, fragile and immense. I turned back to the window, watching the magnificent palace grow nearer. Guards in silver and black lined the path to enormous doors carved with a great wolf howling at the moon, the Blackthorn emblem. "Welcome to your new home, Alara," Nathaniel said as the caravan halted. "Are you prepared?" I was not truly, but I nodded. My mother's pendant felt suddenly weighty against my skin, an anchor to who I was and whence I came. Whatever awaited within those walls, I would face it with the quiet fortitude she had bestowed upon me. The ensuing hours blurred into a procession of introductions and formalities. A cascade of names and faces, advisors, stewards, nobles residing at court. I struggled to retain them, grateful for Nathaniel's steadying presence and the calm guidance of Lydia, the warrior woman from my pack lodge, now appointed as my personal guard. "Do not trouble yourself with memorizing everyone," she advised during a rare private moment. "Half are here merely to assess you and report to their packs." "Assess me?" I echoed, a chill settling within. Lydia's expression was sympathetic yet frank. You are an unknown, my lady. The king has never shown interest in a counterpart before, and now he returns with you, an enigma from a minor northern pack. A flawed one, I added, the old bitterness rising, her eyes narrowed. I would not use that word where the king might hear. His protectiveness is evident. Before I could reply, a servant arrived to escort me to my prepared chambers, a suite of rooms larger than the entire upper floor of my old home. Everything was elegant yet serene, adorned in shades of blue and silver. The king thought you might wish to rest before the evening meal, the servant explained. He requests your company in the private dining hall at 8 should you feel able. Alone, I wandered through the spacious rooms, trailing my fingers over fine fabrics and polished wood. The bathing chamber held a sunken pool that filled with steaming, scented water at the pull of a lever. Fresh garments had been laid upon the vast bed, simple, beautiful, and perfectly sized. I lingered in the bath until my fingers wrinkled, striving to order the chaos of recent days. 4 days prior, I had been the hidden half-shift, a tolerated disgrace. Now I was, what precisely? The Alpha King's chosen. But what did that signify for my future? As the hour approached, I dressed in a gown of deep blue that made my hair appear silvery in the lamplight. I had just fastened my mother's pendant when a knock came. Nathaniel stood in the corridor, changed into attire that emphasized his stature. For a moment, he simply looked at me, something akin to wonder in his gaze. You are breathtaking, he said finally, offering his arm. I took it, acutely aware of his warmth through the fabric. Thank you for the chambers and the garments, they are beautiful. Do they suit you? They can be altered. No, they are perfect, I am merely unaccustomed to such space. His jaw tightened briefly. You will never be confined again, Alara, I vow it. The private dining hall was an intimate space, a table for 12 set only for 2. Candlelight softened the stone walls, casting dancing shadows. I thought you might prefer tranquility, Nathaniel said, holding my chair. Court dinners can be overwhelming. Relief washed through me. Thank you, I am not yet ready for a spectacle. Servants appeared with wine and the first course, an elegant preparation of fish unknown to me. As we were served, I noticed Nathaniel watching me with that familiar intensity. You have questions, he stated once we were alone. I see them in your eyes. I took a sip of wine for courage, hundreds at least. That earned a genuine smile, transforming his stern features. Begin with one, I considered carefully. At the lodge, you recognized my pendant. You said it signified more than I knew. What did you mean? His expression grew solemn. Direct and perceptive, I value that. He set down his utensil. The symbol, the crescent embracing a star, is the mark of the Moonspeakers. An ancient lineage of wolves with gifts beyond the physical. Moonspeakers, the word felt foreign. Few know of them now. They were believed lost generations ago. His gaze held mine. They were advisors to sovereigns, mediators between packs, healers of body and spirit. Their power resided not in the shift, but in their connection to the moon's own magic. I frowned, struggling to comprehend. And you believe my mother was one? I am certain of it. He reached across, his fingers brushing the pendant. This is no mere ornament. It is a focus stone, passed from one moonspeaker to the next. Your mother must have known what you would become. The room seemed to tilt. The implications were too vast to grasp. But that is impossible. I have no special abilities. Do you not? His voice was gentle. Have you never known things unknowable, felt the emotions of others as your own, found creatures drawn to you or plants thriving under your care? My breath caught. Isolated moments aligned into a new pattern, the injured fox seeking me out, the withered garden blooming after my attention, the uncanny sense of others' feelings. These are minor manifestations, Nathaniel continued. A moonspeaker's full abilities typically emerge after their 21st year, often triggered by profound experience. His expression darkened. Your stepmother may have suspected. It would explain her determination to isolate you, especially from moon-linked ceremonies. But why would she fear such a thing? Power, little wolf. Moonspeakers once held great influence. Some alphas resented it, particularly those with tenuous rule. He leaned forward. Your 21st year, when, in 3 weeks, I admitted, a tremor running through me. Something like satisfaction gleamed in his eyes. The autumn equinox, perfect timing. For what? For you to step into your heritage. He reached for my hand, his thumb caressing my palm, and for our bonding ceremony. The world narrowed to that point of contact, heat spiraling up my arm. You still desire that, even knowing what I may be. My name was a caress. I desire it precisely because of what you are. Do you grasp what it would mean? An alpha king paired with a moonspeaker. It has not occurred in centuries. Together, we could unite the territories as never before. There was passion in his voice, vision, ambition. And something else that made me withdraw my hand. Is that why you chose me? I asked quietly. For political advantage. Nathaniel stilled, his expression becoming unreadable. Is that what you believe? I believe you recognized my pendant at the ceremony. I believe you knew its meaning before you ever claimed me. The pieces aligned. You were not drawn by fate, you saw an opportunity. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window where moonlight pooled on the floor. For a long moment he was silent, his back to me, shoulders rigid. Yes, he said finally, I recognized the pendant. Yes, I understood its potential. He turned, his eyes almost luminous in the dim light. But if you believe that is the sole reason I claimed you, you understand nothing. In 3 strides he was before me, drawing me to my feet with gentle insistence. One hand cupped my face, compelling my gaze. For 15 years I have built peace through strength and vigilance, he said, his voice low and intense. 15 years of watching my back, trusting no one fully, making the hard choices to prevent the territories from crumbling back into war. Do you think I would bind my life to another merely for political advantage? His thumb traced my lower lip, his eyes following the movement with a hunger that stole my breath. The moment I saw you at that clearing's edge, striving to be invisible, something in me recognized something in you. Call it fate, call it the moon's will, but it was real, Alara, as real as this. He lowered his head slowly, giving me space to refuse. When I did not, his lips brushed mine, a question, not a demand. And despite my doubts, despite the voice of caution, I answered by leaning closer, my hands finding purchase in the fabric of his shirt. The kiss deepened, gentle exploration yielding to something more profound as his arms encircled me completely. I felt the rumble of a growl in his chest as my fingers tangled in his hair. When we finally parted, both breathless, his eyes had shifted, more wolf than human. Political advantage, he said roughly, his forehead resting against mine. Does this feel like that to you? I could not lie, not with his scent surrounding me, not with the echo of his kiss upon my lips. No, I whispered, it feels like drowning and soaring as one. His smile was slow, satisfied. Good, remember that sensation, little wolf. It is the truth between us, whatever else you may doubt. The 3 weeks preceding the autumn equinox unfolded as a tapestry of preparation woven with threads of tension. As word spread of the impending official union between the Alpha King and his mysterious choice, dignitaries and pack leaders from across the territories descended upon the capital, their arrivals heralded by blaring horns and rolling caravans. Each bore gifts of jeweled daggers, bolts of spider-silk cloth, and rare lunar blossoms, their offerings masking a palpable, scrutinizing curiosity. My existence became a curriculum. Tutors assigned by Nathaniel attempted to compress years of court protocol, territorial history, and diplomatic nuance into a handful of rushed lessons. Dressmakers surrounded me, their pins pricking as they fashioned a wardrobe fit for a future queen, while palace stewards drilled me on the names, lineages, and political leanings of every significant arrival. Through the whirlwind, I felt like a sapling bent by a relentless gale. Nathaniel appeared in fleeting moments, a steadying presence in the eye of the storm. He would steal me away to the palace's walled gardens, where the scent of night-blooming jasmine offered a reprieve from the incense-choked halls. Or he would join me for late suppers in my chambers after the court had retired, the shadows beneath his eyes speaking of his own burdens. "I am sorry," he said one such evening, finding me on my balcony as I watched the moon wax fuller, a luminous scar against the velvet sky. "This is not how I wished your first days here to be." I turned, taking in the weariness that clung to him. "You are a king, I understand duty." He moved to stand beside me, our shoulders almost touching. "Still, I have cast you into deep waters and left you to learn to swim alone." "I am stronger than I appear," I said, the words carrying a conviction that surprised us both. Something in my tone kindled a smile in his eyes. "Yes, you are." His hand found mine, our fingers intertwining with a newfound ease. "The dreams, how are they?" The dreams had begun a week after our arrival. Vivid, disorienting visions that tore me from sleep, ancient ceremonies under star-drenched skies, battles where wolves moved as one with human warriors, quiet moments of knowledge passed in whispers from mother to daughter. They left me gasping, my mother's pendant warm against my skin. More intense, I admitted. "Last night I dreamed of women standing in a circle beneath the moon, hands joined. They were singing words I could not understand." Nathaniel nodded, unsurprised. "Your gifts are stirring as we near the equinox. The dreams are not yours, but memories, echoes of moonspeakers who came before you." "How do you know so much of this?" I asked, a question I had posed before without full answer. This time he seemed ready to speak. His gaze grew distant, fixed on the moon. "My grandmother was the last alpha to be counseled by a moonspeaker. Before she passed, she made me vow to watch for signs of their return." His thumb absently traced circles on my palm. "She believed the fractured territories would never know true peace without the balance they provide." "Is that why," I breathed, understanding dawning, "you attended every regional ceremony for a decade? You were searching for a moonspeaker." He turned to face me fully, his free hand brushing a stray strand of hair from my cheek. "I was searching for hope," he said simply. "I found you instead." The tenderness in his voice made my heart clench. In these quiet, stolen moments, it was easy to forget the lingering fear that I was valued more for my potential than my person. "What if I am not what you believe?" I whispered into the space between us. "What if the dreams are merely dreams and no greater power awakens?" His expression did not waver. "Then you will still be Alara, the woman who meets each new trial with quiet courage, the woman who has brought light into rooms long left dark." His lips quirked. "The woman who still refuses to let me win at chess despite my royal status." I laughed, the sound soft in the night air. "You are terrible at chess. Your strategy is all frontal assault, no subtlety, so you keep telling me." His smile faded, his gaze turning solemn. "Alara, I need you to know something before the ceremony. Whatever abilities manifest, whatever political advantage our union brings, they are secondary. I chose you, I continue to choose you, every day." The raw sincerity in his eyes stole my breath. Slowly, deliberately, I rose onto my toes and pressed my lips to his, initiating the kiss myself for the first time. His response was immediate, a low growl of approval rumbling through his chest as his arms encircled me, drawing me into the warmth and strength of him. The connection between us flared, bright and undeniable. When we parted, his eyes had shifted, the wolf gleaming close to the surface. "You make it profoundly difficult," he murmured, his breath warm against my neck, "to honor my promise to wait until after the ceremony." A shiver that had nothing to do with the night air traced my spine. "Perhaps that is my intention." His laugh was strained, temptress, but some traditions are worth honoring. With visible effort he stepped back, creating a breath of space between us. "3 more days, little wolf." Then nothing will stand between us again. As he left, the cool air rushed in to replace his warmth. I hugged myself, a sudden, profound uncertainty taking root. In 3 days, I would be bound for life to a man who was still, in many ways, a cipher. In 3 days, according to the old ways, my dormant legacy would supposedly awaken. In 3 days, everything would change again. My fingers found my mother's pendant, seeking an anchor. What am I to do? I whispered to the silent moon. How can I become what everyone expects? No answer came, save the distant, mournful howl of wolves in the distant mountains, a sound that seemed to echo the longing and trepidation coiled within my own soul. The night before the equinox, sleep eluded me. My chambers, once a haven of space, now felt like a cage. Slipping from my bed, I wrapped a cloak over my nightdress and paced barefoot through the palace's slumbering corridors. Guards nodded as I passed, granting me a respectful berth, Nathaniel's orders ensuring I would never again feel imprisoned. My wandering feet, guided by an instinct I could not name, led me to the palace archives. The vast, hushed chamber was a forest of knowledge, shelves towering like ancient trees laden with scrolls and leather-bound volumes. I had been brought here briefly by a tutor, but now I moved with purpose, my hand skimming over spines until I found a section that seemed older, books bound in faded leather and cloth. One volume called to me, slender, bound in pale blue, its spine unmarked. I drew it from the shelf. As I opened it, delicate, flowing script filled the pages, accompanied by intricate illustrations of moon phases, healing herbs, and ritual circles. A moonspeaker's journal, a voice observed from the shadows. I started, nearly dropping the precious book. An elderly woman emerged from between the stacks, her posture regal despite her years, her silver hair woven into an elaborate braid. Lady Aliner, Nathaniel's great-aunt, and a respected voice on his council. I apologize, I stammered. I did not mean to intrude. No intrusion. I have been awaiting you, she gestured to the journal. It belonged to my mother, the last royal moonspeaker. I thought you might find your way to it. I stared, my mind reeling. Your mother, but then the gift does not always pass directly, she explained, moving closer. It can sleep for generations or remain dormant if the conditions are not right. Her wise, assessing eyes studied me. Your mother was from the Eastern Territories, was she not? How did you know? The pendant. It belongs to the Eastern lineage of moonspeakers, those gifted in healing and dreamwalking. Her fingers hovered near the silver crescent without touching. I never manifested the gifts myself, but I recognize the signs in you. The dreams have begun, yes, I admitted, and other things. Yesterday I knew a servant approached my door before she knocked. I felt the king's frustration during a council meeting from rooms away. Lady Aliner nodded, a look of satisfaction crossing her features. Your awakening progresses naturally. That is good. Some required ritual intervention at the transition. She gestured again to the book. Take it. It belongs with you now more than with these dusty shelves. As I accepted the journal, a question I had carried since childhood broke free. Why was I never told? My mother must have known. My father safeguarded this pendant, but he never spoke of its meaning. Sadness flickered in the old woman's eyes. Fear, child. After the last great war, moonspeakers were hunted by those who blamed them for shifting alliances. Many hid, concealing their natures, teaching their children to do the same. Her hand rested gently on my shoulder. Your mother likely hoped you could live an ordinary life, that the gift would sleep within you forever. But it did not, I whispered. No, and perhaps that is for the best. The territories need balance once more. Her expression grew grave. Nathaniel is a good ruler, but he governs through strength and strategy alone. That path in time leads to rebellion or stagnation. I clutched the journal tighter, and I am to provide this balance. I scarcely understand what I am. Lady Aliner's smile was unexpectedly gentle. You will learn. The knowledge is in your blood, in your dreams, and now, she nodded at the book, in your hands. Before I could ask another question, a distant commotion shattered the archive's silence, shouts, the clash of metal, the thunder of running feet. Lady Aliner's head tilted, her expression sharpening as if listening to a distant signal. "What is it?" I asked, cold apprehension dripping down my spine. "Intruders." In the east wing, her eyes locked with mine, urgent now. "Go to your chambers, bar the door, the guards will come for you." I hesitated, reluctant to leave her. "Go, child, the future queen cannot be found wandering unprotected when the palace is under threat." The future queen, the title, heavy with responsibility, propelled me into motion. I hugged the journal to my chest and fled back through the labyrinthine corridors, my bare feet silent on cold stone. As I neared my quarters, the sounds of conflict swelled, snarls, crashes, the unmistakable tumult of wolves battling in confined spaces. My hand was on my chamber door when a figure lunged from a side passage, blocking my retreat. For one heart-stopping moment, I thought it an attacker. Then I recognized the face, twisted in hatred and a terrible triumph. "Vivian." "Hello, Alara," my stepmother hissed, her smile a cruel gash. "How fortuitous to find you alone." Behind her, two hulking figures emerged, half-shifted, claws gleaming and teeth bared in savage grins. I retreated slowly, my back pressing against the cold stone wall. "What are you doing here?" "Correcting a monumental error," Vivian spat. "Did you truly imagine I would allow you to ascend to queen, a half-shift aberration who should have been exposed at birth?" The venom was familiar, but the desperation beneath it was new, raw. "The Alpha King chose me," I stated, forcing my voice steady. "Can he choose a corpse?" She took a step closer. "A bonding requires both parties to live, little mistake. If you were to perish tragically before the ceremony, well, the king would grieve, but in time he would choose again, someone more suitable. One of her own daughters, she meant, the full scope of her ambition crystallized with chilling clarity. "You will not succeed," I said, continuing to edge away. "Nathaniel will know it was you. Will he?" Her eyes glittered. "With the palace in chaos from this conveniently timed disturbance, I think not." She jerked her head toward the men. "Take her. Make it appear she was caught in the crossfire." They lunged. In that instant of pure, primal terror, something fundamental shifted within me, not a physical change, but a veil tearing away from my senses. I could feel the moon above, its silver energy streaming through stone and mortar to touch me. I could feel the frantic drumbeat of every heart in the corridor, the searing colors of their emotions, Vivian's bitter envy, the attacker's bloodlust, my own crystalline fear. Without conscious thought, my hand closed around my mother's pendant. As my fingers gripped the warmed silver, a pulse of pure, silvery energy radiated outward from my core. It was silent, but it struck my attackers like a physical wall, throwing them backward off their feet. They crumpled, clutching their heads with guttural cries. Vivian staggered, her triumphant sneer dissolving into confusion, then into dawning, abject terror. What are you?" "I am not what you believed me to be," I said, my voice resonating with a power not my own. "I never was." The pendant grew hot against my palm, and with the heat came knowledge, ancient words rising from the deepest well of my being. I spoke them without comprehension, feeling their power shape and charge the very air. The men writhed. Vivian remained standing, but her face was ashen. "Moonspeaker," she breathed, the word a curse and a surrender. Yes, the truth of it settled into my bones, final and absolute. "Now leave this place, never return. If you do, I will know, I will always know." I did not know if it was the command or the power thrumming behind it that convinced her, but Vivian scrambled back, grabbing her incapacitated accomplices and dragging them into the shadows, disappearing down the corridor. As they vanished, the borrowed energy ebbed, leaving me trembling and hollow. I barely managed to stumble into my chambers before my legs failed, sending me to my knees. The journal spilled from my grasp, its pages splaying open to reveal an illustration that mirrored what had just transpired. A female figure, pendant aglow, radiating waves of force that repelled advancing wolves. Alara, Nathaniel's voice reached me a heartbeat before he did, the door bursting open as he entered with Lydia and a contingent of guards. His expression was wild, a storm of panic that broke into profound relief at the sight of me. He was at my side in an instant. "Are you injured?" I shook my head, words still beyond me. "There was an attack," he explained urgently, his hands checking me for wounds. "A coordinated strike on the palace defenses." When I could not find you, his eyes scanned the room, noting my disheveled state. "Vivian," I managed to say. "She was here. She tried to end me." A growl deep and predatory vibrated through him. "Where is she?" "Gone." I stopped her. I pulled back enough to see his face, to see the dawning understanding there. "What you said would happen, it has. I felt the power, I used it." Wonder and a fierce pride transformed his features. "Tell me." Haltingly, then with gathering strength, I recounted the confrontation, the surge of energy, the ancient words. As I spoke, his apprehension melted into awe. "The equinox is not until tomorrow," he murmured, his fingers gently brushing my cheek. But dire need must have triggered the change early. His touch was reverent. "How do you feel?" How did I feel? Altered irrevocably. More aware of the intricate web connecting all things, the life in the stone, the song in the moonlight, the secret hearts of those around me. And yet, paradoxically, more myself than I had ever been, as if I had finally stepped into a shape crafted for me alone. "Complete," I said simply. His smile then was everything, pride, triumph, and a love so profound it stole the air from the room. "My queen," he whispered. No longer a title of formality, but an acknowledgement of what I had become. The equinox ceremony the following day was both more and less than I had anticipated. More because as I stood in the sacred circle beneath the open, darkening sky, surrounded by the assembled might of the 5 territories, I could feel them. Their emotions lapped at my awareness like ocean currents: curiosity, skepticism, fragile hope, thinly veiled fear. My newfound sensitivity rendered every moment vibrantly complex, overwhelming yet fiercely enlightening. It was less because when the chanting ceased and the incense smoke cleared, the heart of the elaborate ritual was profoundly simple: Nathaniel and I, standing face to face, declaring our choice before the gathered world. The High Elder, an ancient wolf with eyes like milky quartz, spoke the traditional invocations. Then Nathaniel stepped forward, his gaze never left mine. "I choose you, Alara," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly on the still evening air. "Not for what you are or what you may become, but for who you are. I choose your resilience, your compassion, your quiet, unyielding strength. I choose to stand beside you, to shield you, to honor you as my equal and my counterpart from this day until my last breath." The words, though traditional, were imbued with a personal conviction that brought a heat to my eyes. When my turn came, the prepared script felt insufficient. "I choose you, Nathaniel," I began, then let my heart speak. "I choose the man who saw me when I was purposefully unseen, who recognized worth in me when I had forgotten my own. I choose your vision, your determination, the hidden gentleness beneath your strength. I choose to stand beside you, to balance you, to walk with you through darkness and light from this day until my last." As the final syllable left my lips, the mating bond snapped into place between us. It was not a chain, as I had once feared a bond might be, but a bridge, a luminous connection that enhanced rather than diminished our separate selves. I gasped at the sensation, at the sudden, dazzling awareness of Nathaniel not just before me, but within me, his steady presence a new constellation in my soul. His eyes widened, reflecting my own astonishment. Later, I would learn this deep spiritual fusion was unique to unions with moonspeakers, a sharing of essence, not merely fate. The feast that followed in the great hall was a blur of jeweled goblets, murmured pledges, and assessing stares. I moved through it with a newfound clarity, seeing beyond polished words to the emotions that fueled them. Most visiting alphas regarded me with cautious optimism, their initial doubts softening as they witnessed Nathaniel's undisguised devotion and my own calm assurance. Lady Alina found me during a rare moment of respite near a towering stained-glass window. "You have already begun to shift the currents," she murmured, nodding toward a cluster of historically rival pack leaders engaged in surprisingly civil discourse. "They sense it even if they do not comprehend what they feel. The balance you spoke of," she nodded. "Nathaniel united them through strength and necessity. You will bind them through understanding and shared purpose." Her gnarled, cool hand covered mine briefly. "Together you will forge something not seen in generations, true harmony." As the celebration swirled around us, my gaze was drawn repeatedly to Nathaniel. Our new bond hummed between us, a tangible tether of warmth and recognition. When our eyes met across the crowded hall, the silent communication was instantaneous, a private language born of our connection. The need for solitude to complete what had been consecrated in the circle was a shared, pulsing thought. Much later, in the privacy of the chambers we would now share, I stood before the window. The full equinox moon cast a river of silver across the slumbering city below. Nathaniel's arms encircled me from behind, his chin resting gently on my head. "Any regrets?" he asked softly, his voice vibrating through me. I leaned back into his solid warmth. "None, even knowing the challenges ahead, the weight of it all." I turned within his embrace to face him. "I spent a lifetime being told I was too flawed, too different to hold any value. You showed me my difference is my strength." My hand found his cheek, feeling the faint roughness there. How could I regret embracing that truth? His smile in the moonlight was slow, intimate, and filled with a depth of feeling that echoed through our bond. "My wise queen, you're equal," I corrected gently. "Always." He drew me closer, his lips finding mine with a familiar hunger now tempered by an eternal tenderness. Through our bond, I could feel the tapestry of his emotions intertwining with mine, desire and protectiveness, fierce joy, and beneath it all, a love that had grown from recognition to choice to unshakable covenant. The days following the bonding ceremony were not a fairy tale's peaceful ever after, but the beginning of a new, more complex reality. The crown, even as a consort, was not merely jeweled metal. It was a weight of expectation, a lens of scrutiny, and a symbol I had to learn to wear without letting it define me. My mornings began with Lydia's crisp briefing on the day's schedule, security concerns, and the ever-shifting moods of the court. Afternoons were often spent in the solar with Lady Alina and the journal, my education as a moonspeaker beginning in earnest. The ancient script, once cryptic, now seemed to shift and clarify under my gaze, the knowledge within whispering up to meet my own awakening understanding. I learned of lunar alignments that could amplify healing, of herbs that could soothe fevered minds, of how to listen to the silent language of the land itself. One afternoon, as I practiced grounding myself, feeling the deep, slow pulse of the earth through the palace stones, a sharp spike of anxiety, not my own, pierced my concentration. It was threaded with Nathaniel's distinctive essence, frustration and simmering anger. I followed the thread of feeling, not with my feet but with my mind, until I found its source, the map room where he met with his war council. I did not intrude, but the echo of his tension stayed with me. That evening, over a private supper, I broached the subject. "The talks with the Western Ridge Pack are not going well." He looked up from his plate, surprise flickering across his face before it was masked by careful neutrality. "The council reports are confidential." "I am not citing a report," I said softly, meeting his gaze. "I felt your distress. It was like a storm cloud in the west of my mind." He set down his goblet, studying me. The bond between us shimmered with his conflicted feelings, the instinct to shield me from unpleasantness warring with the reality of what I was. "Their alpha, Kale, is intractable," he admitted finally. He refuses to honor the new border agreements, citing ancient, questionable precedents. He is mobilizing hunters along the disputed riverlands, and your council urges a show of force. It is the language Kale understands. Is it, I asked, not challenging but genuinely curious, or is it the only language you have used with him before? You said moonspeakers were once mediators. A muscle ticked in his jaw. It is different now. The world is harder. The world has always been hard, I said, reaching across the table to lay my hand over his. But you sought a moonspeaker for a reason, Nathaniel. Not just as a consort, but as a partner. Let me try, not to command, but to listen, to understand what truly drives Kale's defiance. He was silent for a long moment, his fingers turning to intertwine with mine. The bond hummed with his internal debate. It is dangerous. Kale is volatile and he has no respect for traditions he deems weak. I am not asking to go alone, nor am I suggesting weakness. I am proposing a different kind of strength. Let me accompany your envoy. Let me listen. After a pause that stretched the length of the hall, he nodded, a reluctant concession. Very well, but Lydia does not leave your side, and at the first sign of threat you return. That is not negotiable. It was a small victory, but a significant one. It was the first acknowledgement in practice of the role I was to PL. The journey to the western border was tense. Nathaniel's envoy, led by his steadfast Captain Rylan, was a contingent of seasoned warriors whose skepticism of my presence was a thick, unspoken fog. I did not blame them. They were trained for conflict, not for conversation facilitated by a woman who spoke to the wind. We met Alpha Kale in a neutral ground, a grassy bluff overlooking the very river in dispute. He was a mountain of a man with a beard like a thicket and eyes that held the glint of flint. His disdain for the proceedings was palpable. Blackthorn sends his new bride to negotiate. Kale's laugh was a derisive bark. Has he grown so soft? Captain Ryland stiffened, but I stepped forward slightly, a calm smile on my lips. The king sends his respect, Alpha Kale, and he sends me to listen. He believes understanding must precede agreement. I understand that river has been my pack's fishing ground for 10 generations, Kale growled. And I hear the truth in that, I said, my voice even. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, not for drama, but to focus. I reached out with the new sense that was growing in me, pushing past Kale's bluster. I felt not just his stubborn pride, but beneath it a sharper, more desperate fear. A fear of scarcity, of a failing salmon run, of a harsh winter whispering on the wind and hungry pups in his dens. I opened my eyes. The river is life. You fear not just for your rights, Alpha Kale, but for your pack's survival. The southern run has been poor this year. Kale's sneer faltered, replaced by shock and suspicion. How could you? The land speaks, I said simply, echoing words from my mother's journal. It whispers of strained currents and silt where eggs should be. This dispute is not about lines on a map. It is about fear for your children's bellies. The bluff was silent save for the rushing river below. Kale stared at me, his defiance crumbling into wary confusion. What of it? Does Blackthorn offer charity? He offers solution, I said, feeling the path forward like a clear thread in the dark. The northern tributary in your territory runs strong. Our engineers have methods to channel some of that flow to revitalize the spawning beds here. We offer the knowledge and the labor. In return, we ask for shared stewardship of this stretch of river, not ownership, but partnership to ensure it thrives for 10 generations more. It was not a concession of defeat, but a proposal for mutual gain. It addressed the true need beneath the aggression. Captain Ryland looked at me, his earlier skepticism replaced by dawning respect. Kale was silent for a long time, his gaze shifting from me to the river and back. The fear in him was still there, but it was now mingled with a fragile, desperate hope. You can do this, ensure the fish return, with your pack's help and the moon's blessing, yes. He let out a long, slow breath, the fight leaving his shoulders. Then we have much to discuss, Moonspeaker. The word was no longer a curse from Vivian's lips, but a title of recognition, heavy with a chance for peace. My successful mediation with Kale shifted my standing in the court from curious novelty to respected asset. Nathaniel's pride in me shone brightly through our bond, but it was tempered by a growing watchfulness. Success bred visibility, and visibility bred danger. We discovered the depth of that danger one rainy evening. A sealed message carried by a bedraggled hawk arrived for me. It was from Mira, still in the northern pine pack. The script was hurried, fearful. Alara, Vivian has not returned, but her allies here are restless. They whisper of a cleansing, of purging unnatural influences from the territories. They speak of you not as a queen, but as an abomination that will dilute the pure wolf bloodlines. I fear they are not alone in this thought. Be watchful, your friend Mira. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Vivian's defeat had not ended the ideology she espoused, it had merely scattered its seeds. Nathaniel's face was granite as he read the note over my shoulder. This cleansing, it is an old, ugly sentiment, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. One I had hoped was buried. It seems some wished to dig it up. He turned to me, his hand coming to rest on my shoulder. You are not an abomination, you are the dawn of a new age, but dawns are often resisted by those who love the darkness. What do we do? We root them out, he said, the Alpha King's steel in his tone, but carefully. This is a poison that spreads in shadows, we must expose it to light. He paused, his gaze softening as he looked at me. And you, my light, must be more vigilant than ever. Your abilities make you a target as well as a treasure. The following weeks were a dual exercise. Publicly, I embraced my role, touring territories with Nathaniel, using my growing sensitivities to soothe disputes and sense grievances before they festered. Privately, we worked with a trusted circle, Lydia, Captain Rylan, Lady Aliner, to trace the threads of the anti-Moonspeaker sentiment. It was like hunting smoke. Just as we grasped one thread, it dissolved, only to reappear elsewhere. The stress was a constant, low hum. My dreams, once a channel for ancestral memory, now sometimes twisted into nightmares of grasping shadows and silent, hostile crowds. Nathaniel's presence through our bond became my anchor, a steady, golden warmth in the psychic tempest. One such nightmare woke me screaming, a vision of a great, corrupted wolf with eyes of void standing over fallen banners. Nathaniel was awake instantly, gathering me close. SHHH. It is a dream, my heart, only a dream. It felt like a warning, I choked out against his shoulder. Then we heed it, he said, his voice firm. But we do not let fear rule us, we face it together. His certainty was a fortress. In his arms, with our bond thrumming with shared resolve, the shadows of the dream receded. But the echo of Mira's warning remained. The fight for our future, for the balance we represented, was only beginning. The true test came not from shadowy conspirators, but from a source we had begun to trust. The Silver Fang Pack, traditionalists from the southern mountains, had been cautiously supportive since the river accord with Kale. Their alpha, a proud but reasonable wolf named Selene, had even invited us to their ancestral grounds for the blessing of the first snow, a significant honor. The ceremony was beautiful, held in a frozen crystal grove under a pale winter sun. Selene was gracious, her pack's rituals solemn and moving. It was during the feast afterwards that the trap was sprung. As I reached for a ceremonial cup of spiced wine, a sharp, discordant note shrieked through my senses. It was not sound, but a violent surge of malicious intent, so potent it made me recoil. The cup clattered to the table. Is something amiss, Queen Alara? Selene asked, her eyes sharp. Before I could answer, a young male from her pack, his face flushed with fanaticism, leaped onto the table. It is an abomination, he screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. She senses the truth in the wine. She knows we have purified it with wolfsbane to test her corrupted blood. Chaos erupted. Nathaniel was on his feet in a blur, a furious snarl tearing from his throat as he positioned himself between me and the crowd. Lydia's sword was in her hand, but we were surrounded by the entire Silver Fang pack in the heart of their territory. Selene looked from her raving pack member to me, horror and confusion warring on her face. Wolfsbane, Gavril, what have you done? What you were too weak to do, mother. The youth, Gavril, spat. Protect our purity, she has bewitched the king and weakens us all. The cleansing demands her death. The word hung in the icy air. This was not a scattered sentiment. It was an organized, violent faction, and it had just revealed itself within a pack we considered an ally. I felt the wolfsbane then, a creeping, icy numbness starting in my gut where I'd ingested a sip. It was a poison deadly to wolves, meant to force a shift to metabolize it, a shift I could not complete. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through me, but with the panic came a surge of something else. The moon, though hidden by day, was a constant presence. My pendant grew warm, then hot. The voices of my ancestors, the moonspeakers in my blood, seemed to rise in a silent chorus. We are healers, we are the moon's answer to poison. I acted on instinct, my hands, trembling, pressed against my own abdomen. I did not chant, I pouring the silvery, calming energy of the moon that lived within me into the spreading cold, not to fight it with brute force, but to transform it, to unravel its toxic intent into harmless components my human body could expel. A visible, soft silver light emanated from my hands, glowing through my gown. Gasps filled the hall, my vision swam, the effort immense. I felt Nathaniel's terror and fury through our bond, a raging fire beside my own icy struggle. After what felt like an eternity, the cold receded. I sagged, the light fading, but I remained standing, my breathing labored but steady. I raised my eyes to Gavril, who was staring in stunned disbelief. You sought to test my blood, I said, my voice weak but clear in the stunned silence. You found it is not corrupt. It is antidote. I then turned to Selene, whose face was ashen with shame and rage. Alpha Selene, the cleansing is not purity, it is a poison in the mind, far more deadly than wolfsbane, and it has infected your son. That was the true turning point. Selene's roar of betrayal was not directed at me, but at the conspiracy that had seduced her heir. The Silver Fang pack, witnessing a moonspeaker not only survive their assassination attempt but cure herself before their eyes, saw not a monster but a miracle. The fanatics among them were swiftly and ruthlessly subdued by their own alpha. We returned to the capital with Gavril and other conspirators as prisoners, and with Selene's unwavering loyalty forged in the fire of her shame and my mercy. The shadowy cleansing movement had been dealt a crippling public blow. But as Nathaniel held me that night, his touch gentle on the lingering chill in my veins, we both knew the war for the soul of the territories was far from over. We had won a battle, but at a great and personal cost. The attempt on my life, though thwarted, left scars that were not physical. A subtle tension now lived in my muscles, a heightened awareness of every glance, every offered drink. Nathaniel's protectiveness became a near-constant, palpable force, a silent growl underlying his every interaction. The bond between us, while our greatest comfort, also transmitted his relentless, simmering anger at the danger I had faced. It was Lydia who, in her blunt way, identified the next challenge. The court sees a miracle worker and a target, she said one morning as we walked the frost-kissed battlements. The territories see a symbol, but a queen, a true partner to a king, must also be seen as part of the pack, not above it but within its heart. She was right. I had been mediating disputes and surviving assassinations, but I had not simply been among the people of Blackthorn City as one of them. With Nathaniel's reluctant agreement, his conditions for my safety more elaborate than ever, I began to walk the city, not in royal procession, but with a minimal guard, visiting the healing wards, the market squares, the public kitchens that fed the city's poor. At first, people bowed and stammered, overawed by the tales of the Moonspeaker Queen, but I asked questions, not about politics, but about their children, their trades, the warmth of their homes as winter deepened. I used my gifts not for grand diplomacy, but in small, quiet ways. In the healing ward, I would simply sit with the sick, my presence and the gentle, conscious warmth I could project, bringing ease to fever and calm to pain. In the market, I could sense the honest merchant from the duplicitous, offering a subtle nod of approval that soon made my favor a mark of quality. One day in the oldest quarter of the city, I found a small, crumbling shrine to the old moon, a precursor to the more structured lunar worship of today. It was neglected, its stone basin dry. On an impulse, I cleared the dead leaves with my own hands. That evening, under a sliver of moon, I returned alone but for a discreet Lydia. I filled the basin with clean water and, holding my pendant, offered a simple prayer of gratitude and protection for the city. I asked for nothing, simply poured my connection to the moon into the water. I did not expect what happened next. A washerwoman, coming early the next morning, found the basin full and used the water for her laundry, finding the colors came out brighter than ever. A child with a persistent cough drank from it and was healed by noon. The story spread, whispered as a small, local wonder. I had not performed a miracle for kings, but for a washerwoman and a child. And that, I began to understand, was a different kind of power. It was the power of connection, of grassroots devotion. The people of Blackthorn began to smile when they saw me, not just bow. They brought me small offerings, a loaf of sweet bread, a spool of dyed thread, a winter berry garland. They called me Moon's Grace in the streets. Nathaniel, hearing the reports, found me in the garden that evening. The fierce, anxious tension that had gripped him since the poisoning had finally begun to ease. He pulled me into an embrace, resting his cheek on my hair. "They love you," he murmured, wonder in his voice. "They are beginning to see me," I corrected softly, "not just a title or a power, but a person who cares for their city." "It is the same thing," he said. "To see you is to love you." Through our bond, I felt his pride soften into something deeper, more secure. He was learning, as I was, that my strength did not make me fragile. My connection to the people was its own form of armor. The intelligence gathered from Gavril and the other captured conspirators was pieced together by Nathaniel, Captain Rylan, and a grim-faced network of loyal spies. It revealed a web more extensive than we had feared. The cleansing was not a rogue faction, but a revived cult with cells in every territory, funded by disgruntled traditionalists who had lost influence under Nathaniel's unified rule and who saw my existence as the ultimate perversion of the natural order. Their leader remained shrouded, known only as the Purifier. Their goal was not merely my death, but the complete eradication of the Moonspeaker lineage and the overthrow of Nathaniel's tainted reign. They planned to strike at the next great howl, a conclave where all alphas would gather at the capital in one moon's time. We faced a dilemma. To cancel, the howl would be to show fear, undermining our authority. To hold, it was to walk into a potential massacre. We used their plan against them, I said in the War Council. We were in the secure map room, the evidence laid out before us. They expect a gathering of targets, we will give them a gathering of witnesses. I laid out my idea. Instead of trying to hunt every shadow, we would let the conspirators come to us, believing they had the element of surprise, but we would be ready. And we would expose them not in darkness, but in the full light of the assembled leadership of the 5 territories. Nathaniel listened, his strategist's mind weighing every angle. It is a risk, a monumental one. "Staying in the dark is a greater risk," Lady Aliner said, her voice like dry parchment. "The Moonspeakers of old understood, poison must be drawn out into the open to be cured." "We prepare for every contingency," Captain Ryland said, his finger tracing lines on the map of the palace grounds. "We control the terrain, we know their objectives, we turn their stage into our own." The plan was set. The next moon was spent in a frenzy of covert preparation. Trusted guards were repositioned, secret passages were checked and rechecked, a network of signals was established, and I practiced not just diplomacy or healing but the more assertive aspects of my gift. I learned with Aliner's guidance how to project a wave of calming energy to diffuse panic, how to create a brief, shimmering barrier of moonlight, not to stop a sword but to disorient and reveal. The night before the Great Howl, Nathaniel and I stood together on our balcony, looking over the city we were preparing to defend. The bond between us was a steady, thrumming chord of shared purpose and simmering tension. "Are you afraid?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I answered honestly. "But not for myself, for what we have built, for the future we are trying to shape." He turned me to face him, his hands firm on my shoulders. "That future is worth fighting for, and we will fight for it together. You are my balance, Alara. And I am your strength, that is what they will never understand." He kissed me then, a kiss of promise and possession, of love and fierce, unyielding resolve. It was an anchor in the coming storm. The day of the Great Howl dawned clear and cold. The palace courtyard was transformed, banners of all 5 territories flying. Alphas, betas, and their retinues filled the space, a sea of fur and finery and watchful eyes. The air thrummed with political tension and the primal energy of so many powerful wolves in one place. Nathaniel and I took our places on the central dais. I wore silver and blue, my mother's pendant prominent. I focused on maintaining a calm exterior, while inside my senses were stretched taut, a live wire attuned to any spike of malice. The ceremonies proceeded, the reaffirmation of treaties, the settling of minor disputes, the sharing of news. The sun began its descent. As the first stars pricked the twilight, the time came for the ceremonial howl, a unified chorus to the moon, symbolizing the bond of the territories. As Nathaniel raised his head to begin, I felt it, a coordinated surge of hostile intent from multiple points in the crowd. It was time. The first attack was not on me. A group of warriors, their eyes glazed with fanaticism, lunged not for the dais but for Alpha Selene and Alpha Kale, who had publicly allied with us. It was a move to decapitate our support. "Now," Nathaniel roared, our prepared response was instantaneous. Captain Ryland's guards, disguised as servants and minor nobles, revealed themselves, engaging the attackers, but the conspirators were numerous. Chaos erupted, a tangle of snarls and clashing steel. Through the fray, a figure cloaked in gray began moving toward the dais with unnatural speed, the Purifier. I could feel the void-like hatred rolling off him, a chilling absence where a soul should be. Nathaniel moved to intercept, a wolf of shadow and fury, but 2 massive berserk wolves cut him off, their sole purpose to delay the king. The Purifier reached the base of the dais. His hood fell back, revealing a face I knew: Borin, an elder from a minor eastern pack who had always seemed a harmless traditionalist. His eyes were blank with zealotry. The moon must be pure. He shrieked, raising a dagger forged of dark, non-reflective metal, moon iron, designed to resist a moonspeaker's power. Lydia engaged him, but he was unnaturally strong, throwing her aside with a burst of terrifying force. He climbed the dais steps. I stood my ground, my heart a frantic drum. I could not fight him physically, but I was not merely physical. As he lunged, dagger aimed for my heart, I did not try to block the blade. I dropped all my defensive barriers and instead I reached not with my hands but with my spirit. I plunged my awareness into the howling void of his fanaticism, past the hate, searching for the source of the corruption. And I found it, not a natural conviction but a twisted, parasitic magic, an ancient, forbidden ritual that had burned out his reason and left only a vessel for hate. It was a sickness of the spirit. The dagger tip touched my gown, but I was no longer just Alara. I was the channel for every moonspeaker who had ever stood for balance. I poured pure, cleansing moonlight not into his body, but into the psychic wound, the rotten magic that held him. He screamed, a sound of agony and shocking clarity. The dagger clattered from his hand. The blankness in his eyes shattered, replaced by a horrified, gut-wrenching realization of what he had done, what he had become. He collapsed, sobbing, not in defeat but in release from a terrible possession. The sight of their leader undone, not by a sword but by cleansing light, broke the remaining attackers. The fight drained from them, they were subdued, silence descended, heavy and stunned. All eyes were on the dais, on the sobbing, broken elder and on me, standing unharmed, a soft silver luminescence fading from my skin. Nathaniel was at my side in an instant, his hand on my back. I looked out over the silent courtyard at the faces of the alphas, their guards, their people. I saw fear, but also awe and dawning understanding. I stepped forward, my voice, amplified by the last of the energy within me, carrying to every corner. You have seen the true face of the cleansing. It is not purity, it is a poison, a possession that steals will and reason. It feeds on fear of the different, on hatred of the new. I gestured to Borin, now being gently helped up by our guards, a broken, remorseful old man. This is its work, and this, I placed a hand over my heart, over my pendant, is its cure, not violence against violence, but light against darkness, balance against chaos. I looked at Nathaniel, then back to the crowd. We stand here not as a king and a queen who demand obedience, but as partners who offer a choice, the old ways of suspicion and strife, or a new path of unity where strength is tempered with wisdom and tradition makes room for growth. The choice is yours. But know this, we will defend this future together. For a long moment there was no sound. Then Alpha Selene, her arm bleeding from a cut, stepped forward. She placed her fist over her heart and bowed her head not just to Nathaniel but to me. One by one, the other alphas followed Kale, the others, even the hesitant ones. The courtyard filled not with a howl of challenge, but with a deep, resonant hum of acceptance, a sound of packs aligning, not under threat, but under a shared, hard-won hope. Later, in the quiet of our chambers, with the palace settling into an exhausted peace, Nathaniel held me. The bond between us was a quiet, brilliant sun, humming with relief, triumph, and profound, weary love. You were magnificent, he whispered into my hair. We were, I corrected, leaning into him. It was your strength that held the line, your plan that provided the stage. And your light that showed the way, he said. He pulled back to look at me, his amber eyes soft. It is not over. There will be more shadows, more challenges. I know, I said, but now they know what we are, what we represent, and now we know what we can do together. We looked out at the moon, full and bright over a city and territories that had chosen to step from the darkness into its light. The hidden girl in the attic was gone. In her place stood a queen, a moonspeaker, a partner. The journey had begun with a claiming under a full moon. It continued now, under that same eternal light, as we began the true work of building a legacy not of fear, but of balance, together.